We are the Coalition, loud and proud, outrage porn-free, civilly disobedient media broadcasting live on the Worldwide Coalition Media Network here at the Go Local Live Broadcast Center, deep in the heart of the city we love, Providence, Rhode Island, the naked city, the city of 300,000 stories. Facebook.com/The Coalition Radio, on the mighty Twitter at Coalition_radio, and of course the mothership, CoalitionRadio.us, where you'll find links to our podcast channel, to our YouTube page, and of course to our new Liberty News page, where we will put forth information directly from a variety of civil rights, civil liberties organizations operating here in the United States, Rhode Island, and around the world. Well, my next guest we ended up chatting through perhaps the most indirect means. We'll talk about that a little bit, but he's only got a few minutes, so I wanted to introduce him right away. He is Kevin Broccoli. He is the artistic director of the Epic Theater Company, operating over on Park Avenue in Cranston. Kevin, welcome to the Coalition. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Hi, yeah, thanks for having me.
Now, I know you've got a hectic night tonight. You've got a production tonight. Give us, if you will, before we talk, I think about one of the funniest yet perfectly political ideas that I've seen in a long time, and something is an event that Rhode Island desperately needs. But tell us about your organization, the type of plays you do, and how folks can find out more about you.
So the name of the company is Epic Theater Company, and we tend to do, we operate out of the Artists Exchange in Cranston, like you said. We have a small theater and then a slightly larger space, so we operate out of the two different spaces, and we do stuff all around the state. And mainly our mission is to do interesting, people would call it like edgy work, stuff that really engages audiences and hopefully gets people thinking.
Interesting, and Lord knows this state needs more live theater. We've had some recent changes and losses and challenges. So live theater, of course, remember, was some of the most original and earliest political thought that took place really in Western culture. What are some of the productions you've got coming up, and what are you working on? Are these productions
right now,
written locally?
Yeah, so right now we're working on a play called Fires in the Mirror, which is by Anna Deavere Smith. It's a docudrama. It's one of her, if people know her, it's one of her earlier works, and it looks at the Crown Heights incident in 1992, which
wow.
It's because it's almost 30 years ago, which is shocking to think about. 1992 being 30 years ago almost.
Just as a note, I was working in New York City at the time. And if folks don't know, Anna Deavere Smith is known for two things. Number one of the most provocative one-woman productions that's taken place in this country. Along the lines of the great one-woman, one-man shows. And at the same time, she's also known in the popular culture. She was one of the nurses, I believe, in the emergency show, correct? Or ER, right?
I know. I don't know about that. I know she was on West Wing, and a lot of people have come up to us and mentioned how much they liked her on West Wing. I think she was like the Secretary of Defense on that. But yeah, she's a phenomenal actor, and we've done a few of her plays before. So I think this is our third time doing her. She's just incredible. She's and very interested in sort of giving a voice to people who don't typically have one. So we're in the middle of that right now, and I think it's a good example of the kind of work that we do here.
Mm-hmm. So I became familiar with the organization. Shame on me for not knowing about it earlier. My bad. Because of a rather provocative idea. It seems very innocent, but on multiple levels, it's very subversive. You've got a production coming up at the end of the month. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, anyone who follows docket politics has probably seen the article that came out in Uprise by Steve Ahlquist about it's unfortunate. Every time you see something from Rhode Island start to gain traction nationally, it's just never good.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh boy, what's this? And so I clicked on it, and it was this town council meeting where there was a resolution put forth by one of the council members to named Alex, who to denounce white supremacy, and what then proceeded was this sort of surreal, almost like Kafka-esque, like town council meeting where it was debated about what white supremacy is there actually white supremacy, it just went on. It seemed to me like it went on and on and on, and it took me a couple times to read it because every time I started reading it I got like a splitting headache. And then I did what everyone does. I like shared it on Facebook, and I was like, oh, can you believe this? And then I went back and looked at it again, and I was like, this article is really well written, and it's getting very close to being an actual script for something. Mm-hmm. And so I contacted one of the women that I work with, Lauren Pothier, and she's very socially active, very engaged. And I said, what if we just read this? What if we just took an hour one afternoon and opened it up to the public and anyone who wants to come? And I was like, I just feel like it's so ridiculous. People just have to like hear this out loud. There's characters, there's like a narrative, like there's a twist at the end. It's just really unbelievable. And I have to admit, we do a lot of kind of out there stuff here, but a lot of the stuff that we do is just because ultimately at the end of the day, we're a bunch of wise asses.
Right. No, it works.
I'm just very, anything I can do to sort of like rile people up is interesting to me. But I really thought, I said, we'll do it. We'll put it out there, but we're not going to publicize it too much, not because we don't want people to know, but just because we get fun.
Oh, you still there, bud?
I'm sorry?
Okay, we lost you there for a second. So you were mentioning that you didn't want to publicize it, yet it seems to be going Rhode Island viral.
Yeah, it was very of course, anything where you're like, we'll just mention this. And we didn't want to not publicize it because we didn't want people to know about it, but we just have so much other stuff going on that we actually are, putting our full weight behind. And so as soon as I posted it and then I saw it start to get, people were like, oh, I'm going to this. Maybe there was something to this after all. It's in the vein of a lot of theaters around the country have been reading the Mueller report because, the theory is people don't read. Right. We were kind of piggybacking off that idea. But the funniest part to me is that now people in different cities are sending me like transcripts of town council meetings. Just and I was like, oh, let's just be clear. We're not turning into the town council theater. Like, that's not, you can just go to your town council meetings free. Like, you can see the real deal.
That's why God invented public access TV. And we have a saying for it here. We cover some of the town councils. We call it either the theater of the absurd, or my favorite, personally, is town councils gone wild. Because, number one, as someone who finds great humor in myself, I look at some of these meetings and I'm not sure the pomposity, the self-absorption, the outright stupidity. I think it's one of these situations where there's a tendency to mistake people for laughing with them as opposed to what's really happening, where they're laughing at them.
Yeah, exactly.
We see town councils around the state redefining basic laws just basically on the whim of one of their constituents, or maybe they wake up one day and just decide to effectively establish martial law in a community. It'd be funny if it wasn't so serious, but why I love this idea is that Woonsocket in particular, and we've had Alexander Kithis on the show a number of times, both in his early capacity as a blogger and then as a candidate. There seems to be this kind of unholy obsession that the Woonsocket City Council has with Alexander Kithis, who's otherwise a remarkably bright, articulate young man who takes great passion in human rights. One of the reasons why he developed such an early constituency amongst the progressive movement in the state. and yet they just see him as sort of this the invading horde. They're obsessed with the guy. I mean,
Well, yeah, this meeting that they documented, someone told me this was his first meeting, or this was like his first, day on the job or something. And I was just like, well, I don't know if that's accurate, but it does have that like tone to it of like a group of people who were like going to battle. It just sounded like they were just prepared to just attack at the ready.
Right. Just wait, as opposed to, appreciating the fact that a young man of Alexander's skills, you don't have to agree with his politics, of his skills and his sincerity, was willing to actually dive into the political process and get his hands dirty working at the town council and engaging with the government at its most basic level. I mean, to me, given the slings and arrows that are often hurled at your generation, I think that should be a moment for applause. You don't have to like his politics to appreciate the fact that participatory democracy needs to be beyond guys who look like me. It's compelling stuff. I mean, my first question when I heard you were doing it was there was an opening for an overweight, middle-aged curmudgeon who's self-absorbed and willing to, obviously, like you can see, talk endlessly. At the same time, I also wonder if there's an opportunity for any interpretive dance to be performed as part of the production. I read the transcript of the part of the meeting, and I can't imagine what this is going to turn like out to be performed. Or they talk about the veil between the actors and the audience. Are you going to be able to maintain a straight face while doing this performance?
I think, well, that's one of the things that we talked about, Lauren and I, who are producing this together, talking about, and Alex messaged me. It's always interesting when people who don't participate in theater or don't see a lot of theater are then exposed or made aware of theater or something, because I have people kind of sending me, like, oh, you should have so-and-so dressed up like a devil, and you should have, and I was like, listen, we have exactly 1 hour to do this, because again, we're not it's a fun idea that we had. So I'm like, we're going to set up 7 chairs and we're going to let the script speak for itself. I think if you just listen to it, and if we just put out there what they said, I wouldn't want to give anyone in the transcript the opportunity to say, well, they presented me as blank, rather than just they said exactly what I said. That's
right.
I'm a big believer in let them, let them hang themselves with their own rope.
Right.
So that's kind of what we're going into thinking. I think it's a better script than most playwrights could write.
The work stands by itself, as they say.
Yeah.
It stands on its own.
That being said, we are gonna, and it's funny, and maybe once this gets out there, I was all for Alex reading himself. He sort of like the Muppet Show, where there was one human and the rest were Muppets.
Right.
I really thought Alex should read his own part, and I even said that online. And because he's the nice guy that he is, he was like, "Oh, I'll go and I'll support it." And but I think that would look a little too petty, or people would get mad at me. But I thought that would have been, just blurring the line even more, which would have been fantastic. But we are going to do a talk back after. And Alex has said that he'll stay for the talk back. So there's the reading that we're going to do. We're going to read it. It's not going to take very long. And then we're going to invite people to just, say whatever they want to say about it.
And by the way, if you've spent as much time as I have up here at Halitosis Hall, a.k.a. the State House, or at city council meetings, you'll come to understand that the Muppet analogy is quite adroit and quite on target on your behalf. So congratulations. And I'm not just thinking about the 2 old guys up in the balcony either.
Waldorf and Statler.
Yeah, no, that's outstanding. It's funny. If this event brings your theater more well-deserved attention, then God bless you for your efforts. How many folks are in your theater actively, and do you do any original work, or are you sort of bordering that?
Oh yeah, we do. I mean, I'm a writer myself. That's why we're, this is better than what most playwrights can write. It's better than most of the stuff I've written. It's, but we do some original work. Our next two shows are original pieces of work. We have we're a small, none of us do this for a living. We all have day jobs. So, people kind of come in and out, and it's going to be very interesting when we figure out who's going to be reading who, because we have a really great, talented pool of actors to pull from, and we're sort of figuring out now that people are actually planning to go to this. I really, truly thought I was going to. We've done kind of weird stuff in the past, and it's always hit or miss. Either it really takes off or nobody shows up. And for whatever reason, I just thought we're going to do this and nobody's going to show up, but that's okay because we're just doing it for the hell of it. So now that it looks like people are actually going to attend, and by the way, I invite the other council members if they want to come. I think it can actually be very enlightening to see yourself performed on stage.
I never want to see myself performed. I just never want to see anyone be me. It would be ugly.
Yeah, it's not something I would want to see happen. But as like you said, a lot of these things happen in a bubble. They happen in isolation. They happen when no one's watching. I think it would benefit them to see what happens when they're. We're also planning to stream the whole thing on Facebook. Okay. It's so funny because in the theater world, you have to be careful because everything's copywritten and most of it we do is owned by someone else. So it's very liberating that like all of this is public record and we can do whatever we want with it. It's like, God, I should, this is so much better than what we're used to. We have to get clearance and everything. It's like, oh, we're just going to literally read it. So we're planning to stream it on Facebook so that if people can't make it, they can watch later. But I think it would be very enlightening for them to see how they sound when performed.
Yeah, and you know what? I would give all the credit in the world to any one of the other town councilmen who would leave the comforts, if you will, and the walls, the borders of Woonsocket, and came down and actually had a conversation with people. I think that would be a remarkable turn on the event, and I would think it would show kind of a sense of humor and a personal courage that might take a situation, which I think, as you've pointed out, is an, oh my God, I can't believe they just said that, and perhaps have people develop some rapport and some mutual understanding. It's actually not just potential to be wildly funny, but and poignant at the same time. I want to point that out, that this is not comedy, this is tragicomedy come to life.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't want my giddiness over the of folks like yourself, creative folks like yourself, willing to parody, unintentionally or intentionally, acts of self-parody, is measured by the needing to come back to the notion that folks look askance at what Alexander said. So if one of them showed up, I think it has the opportunity. There's a real opportunity here for a little bit of a mini profile in courage. If one of them came out and said, you know what, let's have a conversation in front of everybody about this, and come to some sort of mutual understanding.
And that's why I think this is really appropriate that is being brought into a theater, because a theater is a place where all different kinds of ideas exist. And but unlike the political arena, in theater we're allowed to tell you that you're wrong, and we don't stand for bullshit. So, you're welcome to have an opinion, but we're allowed to tell you that your opinion's wrong. Right. And I think there's very few places left in the country in general where that is acceptable, to do that and to really tussle with people. People have gotten really afraid to tussle with each other. And I think theater's theater people are always kind of looked at as like super sensitive and, like we all wear black and we all, talk about our feelings, but we're a tough, and we're very much put up or shut up. And so, the appeal of this to me was like I said, just, okay, you said it, we're going to repeat it. Welcome to come and explain why you said it, or
right.
We're going to put a spotlight on you, and see what happens.
Well, I mean, I think in the future, I'd love to have you folks on to do some readings, particularly from your original work, an entire show could be dedicated to the concept of, how do we in the body politic exchange ideas without, regarding it as personal assassinations or as, what was it, Hillary once said, paraphrase, but, the attack of the fill in the blanks on the fill in the blanks. There's, and that's the role I believe theater had in its early, go back to Shakespeare, go back to, any of the great early playwrights, and you saw, that this recodification of current events in a palatable yet clearly charged environment. People look to theater to be challenged and to have conversations that, because of whether it be royalty or the elite, couldn't possibly have in plain English, but through the coded nature, if you will, of theater, could engage in rampantly. You're right. As a culture, we miss that. One of them. I'm a huge fan of political parody. The Providence Journal, up until about 2 years ago, ran something called The Follies every year, and was skewered, absolutely skewered, the high and the mighty, and did it from a just a musical, and they were just damn funny too. It helps when you're funny, and there is clearly an
well, and now they're parodies, though. How ironic.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's that, isn't there? And so I'm wondering if it will be reviewed. I'm hoping you're going to invite the fine folks from the Valley Breeze to weigh in it. Yeah.
I did send out a press release. It's a one-day thing, so it's this weird thing that falls somewhere between politics and theater, and unfortunately, the press right now, for the most part, in the state, don't know how to handle any interesting stories. If it's not a puff piece, they don't really know what to do with it. If it might upset anyone, they don't really know what to do with it. So I mean, I've just kind of left everything to social media, because it's people disparage it a lot, but it's still a tool for that's kind of like unencumbered. So I hope people come. It is free, and I think it'll certainly be interesting, if nothing else.
Excellent. And to your point, we do. There's a whole hell of a lot of regurgitation of press releases that passes for journalism, particularly in the state of Rhode Island.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I call it printing the press release. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a lot of that in theater. Yeah.
Right. And
I always joke that I can pretty much get a critic to say anything if I just put it in the headline of the press release. That's how you wind up with the 8 shows of the year. Yeah. Didn't we already have 7 shows of the? Didn't we have like 1 show of the already? Yeah. Yeah, I'm very excited to see how this transpires. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, and let me just give out the website. It's epictheaterri.org. In fact, I think your statement on your front page brings home the point quite adroitly. Season 2019/2020, The Power of the Truth, and.
Yep, exactly.
God damn, we need a little bit about that. So, congratulations. Do you have you have performances this week? Before then,
we do. We have a show tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, and then we have shows next Friday and Saturday at 8 o'clock.
All right. Well, listen, put us on that press release and allow us an opportunity to work with the unfiltered, unvarnished truth, and hopefully we'll make you proud. How about that?
All right. Thank you very much. It was nice to.
All right, Kevin Broccoli. He's the artistic director of Epic Theater RI, the Epic Theater, which takes place in Cranston, Rhode Island. They're an ongoing production company. Original and thought-provoking plays. Full disclosure, it was Anna Devere Smith, who, by the way, spoke at the Lincoln School for Women a few years back, was not on ER. She was on Nurse Jackie. Sorry about that. So, we'll keep you apprised of the production status, but if you've ever been to anything civic in Woonsocket, then you'll get... The potential for this is outstanding. We're going to take another quick break because we've got more people coming on by the moment. We're going to reach out now and we're going to try to get on the line another of our legion of ACLU lawyers who has an opportunity to celebrate a significant success this week. We are the Coalition, loud and proud, outrage porn-free, civilly disobedient media, broadcasting live on the worldwide Coalition Network here at the Go Local live broadcast center deep in the heart of the city we love, Providence, Rhode Island. Facebook.com/The Coalition Radio. On the mighty Twitter at Coalition_radio. And of course the mothership at coalitionradio.us, where you can find links to our YouTube channel, our podcasts, and of course our Liberty News page, where we will continue to broadcast missives from a number of civil rights, civil liberties, and civilly disobedient organizations. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.